Bulletproof is not a matter of you're not going to get hurt. It's not a matter of you're not going to, die at the end of this trip. It's not a matter of you're not going to feel pain. You're going to probably feel all them things, but it means you're going to rise up regardless of them circumstances and them situations.
Welcome to episode 53 of Give Yourself Some Leeway with me, your host, Eugene Lee. Today I'm joined by Gary Clinton, and he shares his story of hitting rock bottom, his personal growth journey, and coming out on the other end, wanting to get into coaching to help other people. And Gary talks a lot about developing a bulletproof mindset. But what does it really mean to be bulletproof? And how do you get there? We cover that a lot in this episode. And yeah, just let me know what you think of this episode and what does a bulletproof mindset mean to you. You can reach out to me at eugene.leeway on Instagram, giveyourselfsomeleeway.com, or shoot me an email, eugene@leeway.ie. Thank you, and I really hope you enjoy today's episode with Gary. Gary, it's great having you here on the show. Welcome to Give Yourself Some Leeway.
Thank you very much, Eugene, for the invite. I look forward to having this, hour or 45-minute clip podcast we're going to have here. The biggest challenge I'm going to have is holding this microphone for the whole duration of this, but let's have a fun.
Awesome. Let's aim for that hour.
Yeah.
So one thing when it comes to coaches, we tend to follow this similar pattern I've discovered, and that's that we've had this rock bottom or moment of realization. And from that, we have this awareness that we need to better ourselves. And somewhere along this journey of personal development and growth, we get a spark or a vision that brings us into coaching, whether that's part of the self-development that we want to just serve others, or maybe we don't want others to experience the pain that we went through. So what was that like for you? And why did you do your coaching today?
So I can take you on a 2-minute version, a 4-minute version, or 5-minute version, Eugene. Which one would you like?
Let's go for the 5 minutes.
Okay, awesome. So thank you for asking, Eugene, about this, burnout or this rock bottom stage that happened in my life. And it's great to, be able to prepare for such things. And I always think to the listeners, I think it's a good idea to know your own story, know your own script, know what has happened in the past, and be able to, elaborate and say that story out loud. So as I get into my story, yes, I practiced this dozens and dozens of times. So if you have never gone back in the past and revisited your own story, well, it actually shows that you've dealt with that and you're able to communicate that. So there's the first minute, Eugene, okay? Second minute, now we'll move into it. If we reel back the clock a couple of years ago, at 16, my dad passed away. And that obviously had a traumatic event in my life. But I was 16, didn't really understand. And for 2 years, I just played video games all day, every day, didn't do much. And then at 18, I started to drink alcohol. It was actually a responsible thing to do in Ireland, if you're from there, of course, unlike a lot of my friends who drank alcohol 13, 14. So I drank alcohol 18, and then one weekend I started drinking alcohol again, and then the next weekend I started drinking alcohol, and the weekend after, and then the alcohol turned into, hey, do you want to try this? And then I tried that, and then I done this, and then I done that. And I started doing drugs, and I started doing drugs this weekend, that weekend, and unfortunately I started doing drugs every single weekend, but then not only every single weekend, every single day. Unfortunately, I do it in work, and I was doing it in places where I shouldn't be doing it. The airport was a place I used to work, so I shouldn't be doing it there. I'm grateful that I changed that around. I'll get into that in a moment. But for the next 2-3 years, I just took, I was progressively getting worse. I just took consistently amount of drugs, being in an environment with people that are not the best for myself. They didn't really have much growth. They're not really your friends. They're just there as people that, you'll see there on the party time, but if stuff we hit the fan or we want to go for advice or some help, you're not going to go to them people. Good souls, not your friends. You're in debt. I was in debt to people that I should have been in debt to. Not people you don't want to be in debt to. I was having arguments at home, with family, as I was a young kid. It's a lot of hurdles, a lot of challenges going on in my life, and work, stress, pressure, driving around feeling this guilt. Oh my goodness Christ, it was not a positive feeling that I had in my life. And this all started chipping away on myself. It started chipping away. And fun fact, throughout the process, I done my leaving cert, got the worst score in the school, no surprise there. I would say my dad passed away and that led to my bad results. But that's not true. Right? I was always getting bad results throughout the whole school, so it's all good, and it's actually a good success story I believe I have in that regard. But this all built up, taking the drugs, the alcohol, the the friends that you thought were there for you, or not the best for you. And one day, with doing just a ridiculous amount of stupid things like playing hand darts, or doing running down the road, or whatever it is, it all built up onto me. And this was my moment of my rock bottom. This was my Jesus Christ, I need to get help. And I did, and I needed to get the help. And I went and got help from my mom. I asked my mom, hey mom, I really need help big time right now. I'm struggling because I was depressed. I was coming into suicide ideation. It was not a fun place for my life. It's really interesting to rewind the clock back until that time frame compared to where I am now. Just suicide wouldn't be even close to my mind now, but at that time it can just seem like the only way out. And if someone out there listening right now, of course, reach out for help. Maybe some of the listeners are high achievers. Go you, and I hope you keep that way. But I needed help. I got help, went to therapy, started my personal development journey. I told the counselor, the therapist, Michelle, she'll be fine with me saying that. She's fantastic in North Dublin. If you want help, reach out and I'll happily refer you to her. She'll help you amazingly. But I started my personal development journey. I told her I won't do drugs, and I failed. And then, boom, I stopped doing them. I started the personal development journey, started journaling, started meditating, started reading, started turning my life around. And these great things, it's not rocket science to be happy. I don't believe it's rocket science to be depressed either. The stuff that I was doing was easily making me depressed. The new stuff I started doing was easily making me happier. My relationships started building up with my family, my friends. My career started getting better. I was becoming an A player in my work. It was so much better, so much better. And it's just because I've hit that rock bottom. This upward trajectory is just, it's like it's nonstop. And I don't know if other people have had rock bottom or don't have rock bottom have the same drive or motivation unless they do hit rock bottom. I actually think rock bottom can be a positive if you see it that way. It could be the worst thing ever if you view it that way. That was the worst time ever. Oh, this was so bad. You can see it as a positive. My dad passing away is how I led into this coaching journey. Because if I didn't do the alcohol and the drugs and I didn't have a suicide ideation, then I wouldn't be able to help men with their mental health. So this is now coming into how I start my coaching journey. I went over to an academy in the UK, and I talked to a guy called Tony V, not Tony Robbins, right? But Tony V, and he helped me, just kind of ask me a couple of questions of like, what is something you could help people with? And it was around drugs, it was around alcohol. And it's not that I'm a therapist or a counselor, but it's something that I could help people with because I've experienced it. And I'm grateful to say that, I've had testimonials and successes for people that have transformed their life around, alcohol and drugs. People have got their life back. It's the same as myself. So there's kind of an introduction of that story of how I went through that traumatic time, come out of it, changed my life around. A lot of successes I didn't touch on. I only really touched on the negatives, but I also told how I got into the coaching industry. So yeah, thanks for asking, Eugene.
Yeah, of course. That's some story, Gary. That's a lot you went through. One thing that you did mention there was the friends that are around you, especially with all the drink and the drugs and stuff. Were they a massive influence in terms of substance abuse? Was it something that was normalized by them? and let's say it's hard to get out of that circle or out of that cycle then, because even when you have your rock bottom and your moment of realization, your friends tend to drag you down. Like sometimes it's when you start making positive changes, they get like uncomfortable because it's almost like they're jealous that you're making the changes that they want to make. And at the same time, they feel like you're leaving them behind rather than them jumping on board with you. So was it a matter for you that you had to leave some people behind and focus on your growth? Or did you, let's say, try to encourage other people to be like, look, I'm coming from the same position as you. This is my rock bottom. Let's do this together.
It's really interesting that you're speaking to that now, currently in my life. And I lost a lot of schoolhood friends from that timeline, like just good friends that I had because I was doing substances. And I was a bad influence on that. I don't know if everyone who takes drugs are, but I think a lot of people who do take it are a bad influence. But so there was again them friends that I mentioned there that are not really friends. And they won't really be there for you, so they kind of just dropped off, and you don't really have to think about them. That's how I found. They just, you don't really see them. They're probably still partying, but other friends that you used to be connected with, that's always been a tricky one for me, and it still kind of is. And you mentioned points of like jealousy or some point of like, why is he doing this? Who does he think he is? And it's interesting in that regard, as you mentioned that to me. Them friends that would have been there for me in the time of the drugs and the substances, they'll still always be my friends. They might not be my friends currently now, as in I'm going to go hang out with them on a day to day basis, but they've always been good souls and they've always treated me right. So I'm always going to respect that to the highest degree. Um, Looking at new friends who I believe are, making a positive impact, they're of course making a positive impact, but I want to make a positive impact on a different level, on a different scale. So moving into a new friend group is something that is maybe on the horizon right now. Hope this answers the question.
Yeah, of course. I think you definitely struck a nerve there in terms of, I think sometimes people, they get the wrong idea when it comes to um, people who are negatively influenced in their life. And it might just be people who are uncomfortable with the growth journey that you're on. And they're used to the old Gary.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they
yeah.
want you to stay in that comfortable zone. And they're like, but that's the Gary I know. I don't want to see Gary the coach. I want Gary the party guy who's out every weekend, the fun Gary. And it's trying to get them to detach from that identity of the party boy or the fun guy in the weekends and see, look, he's doing something positive for himself. And I'd like to see where his journey takes him and see where it goes, rather than trying to cling onto the security of what they know or what they're comfortable with. So it's how do you have that conversation with is or do you have that conversation with people? Do you approach them and say, look, it's hard to have that conversation where you're saying like, look, I can't be around you as much anymore because I'm on this new journey. And it's a matter of, look, we need to spend less time together because this is a journey I'm on, and you can either join me or we can just, let's say, stay in touch occasionally. How do you have you how do you approach that conversation with those kind of people?
So I've definitely had that conversation, and it was more of like, hey, I'm being an interrogator. It was more of just curious about their uh, options, their opportunities, their decisions, their future. And from that base in my, okay, well, we're not on the same journey, on the same path. Again, always be friends, but it's not the same journey, it's not the same path, it's not the same course. And I found out by just simply, being curious about their life, figuring out what's going on in their situation, and if that lines up with mine. And it doesn't line up with mine, but also they'd be still doing the same old habits that I don't do anymore. It doesn't make sense. If you go to the cafe, you're probably going to get coffee. You go to the bar, you're probably going to have the bar. Probably going to have, an alcohol drink. I don't drink alcohol now. I used to drink alcohol a lot, so I'm not going to go to them places and stay up, 2 a.m. Well, I want to be in bed at 10. I want to be up at 5 or 6, and I want to be getting after the day. It's a whole different life. So being in that environment, it's two different lifestyles, and we can't live. Or I found, well, I say I can't. Maybe I should not affirm that ever to myself again, by the way. But I find it hard to be in that same environment with such people that are doing their own activities. More power to them, but it's not in line with mine. It's not in line with the decisions where I want to go in my life. So having a conversation, I had the conversation, but again, just figuring out what their future plans or figuring out where they wanted to go, and that just helped me with my decision making. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a great approach, and that's something that I've had experience with too, where uh, a lot of my friends, especially my old circle, and they always want to meet up, and it would always be for pints, or it would always be, let's go down to the pub, let's head out to the bar for the night. And for me, like I don't drink as much as I used to. It might be just very occasional, And a lot of the time, I like having the excuse. I'm like, oh, I'm driving, so I can't go out drinking. But then I like to encourage them not to be in that drinking environment where it's all drinking and smoking. And if they want to meet up with me, I either recommend, hey, come over to my place. We can hang out in the garden, or I'll meet you at this place. We'll go for a walk.
Yeah.
And they're both two positive places for me for growth. And it's where I get in the flow state as well, where I'm comfortable and we can just talk on a personal level. Where I find when you head out to the pub or to the bar and it's noisy and just so much distraction, you only talk about trivial matters. Then you're not actually having a deep
Mm.
connecting conversation with that friend.
Mm.
And that's something that I feel that is often missed out on. I'm not saying that there's anything bad with the social scene of going out to the pub and meeting up with your mates and the like, but I find personally, I find that you get that deeper connection with those who you truly value and those who value you when you meet them in the likes of maybe going for a walk in nature, go down to the public park, or meeting up in a quiet setting, meeting up for maybe coffee in a cafe, or meeting up even in your garden or at your house, and just having that conversation, meet up for dinner. Um, so yeah, it's about not kind of setting a boundary as to where you meet those people as well,
Yeah.
and not always, let's say, excluding them from your growth journey, but setting that standard, setting that boundary.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. Meet people at positive places. If it is coffee, if it is, I like to do it on a golf. Only recently played it, only recently started, but that's just a beautiful scenery for me. So then, positive places is a beautiful place to connect or reconnect with people. Um, a lot of times when I go to the pub, when I did, should I say, they'd be sitting in the smoking area. Like I hate smoking. I can't stand smoking. So it's like this is just not the environment I need to be in. And I think it's also important to know to any listeners, if it is a young male or a young female, it's like it's okay not to go to them places. It's okay to actually go to places that make you feel comfortable and make you feel energized and make you feel positive, like Eugene's garden.
Everyone is going to be in my garden.
In the flow state. Yeah, sounds amazing.
In their flow state. Another thing you did touch on there in your story was Michelle. Was it the pharmacist? Was she
Um,
like your first,
Therapist.
let's say, accountability partner in terms of helping you to get off drugs?
Yeah, therapist, and definitely first accountability partner. Would there be anyone else in that time? I could say my family. I could say my family, but I know I've lied to my family in terms of my substance abuse at that time, so it wasn't such good accountability. But to the therapist, definitely a lot of truth, a lot of vulnerabilities, a lot of open honesty, and she was open with me. She's like, "I've done this for a lot, and you're going to tell me you're not going to do it and you're still going to do it. So there's no point in lying here. If you did do it, that's okay. But let's know the truth here." Michelle helped me tremendously. Again, if anyone wants North Dublin, you want to connect with Michelle, I'll happily connect you.
That's great, and it's also having that person. Sometimes I find that people look for an accountability partner and they reach out straight away to their family or their friends, but they feel that they know their ways around it, and or they know that if they're going for a family or friend, that they can be a bit more lenient in terms of their accountability. If a family member is sort of like, "Oh, you're falling off track," it's very easy to brush them aside and be like, "Oh, stop annoying me." But whereas if you have an accountability partner like the way you had Michelle, that they're like, "Look, be honest, just be straight with me. You did or you didn't stay on track. It's not going to it." When you have that, let's say, external accountability partner, where you feel like you're letting someone down, and kind of externally, it's someone where the only connection is this accountability, and you feel like you're letting yourself down that little bit more as well. So you're like, no, I'm going to hold myself accountable and come back and be like, look what I just did. I didn't do this for the past week, or I did this for the past week, and here's what I'm going to do going forward to stop that from happening again.
I can talk a lot to accountability partners as well. Not only that, that was my first accountability partner. You can call it. I never called it that, but now as you mention it, it is true. I think there's like three levels or maybe two levels of accountability. One, telling yourself. I mean, that's just like, come on, and we'll have that, sure. right? It's good to a degree, but long term, I don't know if it's great. Then the other one, second level, would be telling the family, which is again another type of easy pawn to pawn off. Another one would be like level three is like signing a contract or signing some sort of agreement with some sort of accountability partner. I'm going to be here and I'm going to do whatever it takes for that. I had an accountability partner recently, and I still do. Just like I mentioned before, so I'm pretty ill right now. So they, me and my friend, we'd get up at 6 a.m. and we'd call at 6 a.m. and we'd call at 7 a.m. and we'd call at 8 a.m. and we'd call at 9 a.m. each morning for I don't know how many mornings it was. Stop now, unfortunately, as I talk about this, but this is the power of accountability. 6, 7, 8, 9, we'd be doing 50 push-ups at every single hour. And the amount of productivity you can get done throughout a day when having someone like that who is, I don't know if it's coach or if it's a friend, it's great if it's a friend, but it's a friend that's going to like push you. And it's not a friend that's, hey, do you want to go down to the pub? It's a friend that's, well, that's okay too, but on the weekends or whatever, but not on a Tuesday afternoon or a Tuesday morning. It's like, no, we need to start working here for our future. And again, it's important to have goals that are in alignment, or it's important to have some sort of goals that are in alignment with each other, so then you can start moving together or working together. And even if you have the accountability partner, maybe linking up in some way, shape or form, creating some sort of joint venture or some sort of, it does spark from there. That's what I found with my friend, is that it's great to keep each other accountable at the start, but then when you start really getting into each other, you start helping each other a lot. It's like, what can we actually do together? We looked at a vending machine business. He's doing his own thing. It's his own business. To help him get into a position where he doesn't have to work anymore on a day job. It's amazing. And yeah, he's forever grateful for that, and I'm forever grateful for him. Accountability partners, very
Yeah,
powerful.
yeah, that sounds amazing. And you're both helping each other on your growth journey as well.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that exponential effect again, having your accountability, and then seeing how you can help each other to grow. As a result, you're serving each other and that's something that I really do respect.
I've taken a lot of respect from you in this podcast, just here talking to you in terms of, listening to, sitting down with a friend and going to, your garden or going to some positive place. Like that's awesome. And that's awesome. Maybe we could link up and do that sometime, Eugene.
Yeah, straight to my garden. Yeah, no, definitely. Um, Another thing we did touch on, and I think it was when you're starting your recovery and you start small and you work from there. And I think that's something that I like to cover a lot, especially give yourself some leeway. It's like sometimes you want to make that change, and next thing you start looking into, how do I make that change? And you see all these different strategies and tips and tools, and you're like, oh, I have to do this and this and this and this, and then I have to take on this system and that process, and you get so overwhelmed by all the tools out there, and you're like, where do I start? I don't want to do yoga. I don't want to do meditation. I can't do mindfulness. I can barely like keep one straight thought right now. Where am I going to start? And a lot of people fall off. So, what would have been one of your first steps in terms of maybe starting a habit to get you on the right path?
So drugs consumed a lot of my life at that time. That was like, a daily thing. So there was a lot of there was a lot of time I could move into. And if I was to start like three or four things nowadays, I think I'd find it very hard because I would get overwhelmed with strategies and all these things and all the knowledge I have now. It's like time management and all. Oh my goodness. But at the start of that journey, when I was coming out, I was like, I don't know, I just listened to Les Brown, I listened to Tony Robbins, I listened to I'm thinking of Eric Thomas, if you know all them motivational speakers, and I'd just be jamming them out hours and hours and hours and hours and hours in my mind. I used to be a shy kid when I was like a kid. I used to be a shy kid, and I would be afraid to work out at home. These are all the self beliefs and crap I was telling myself. Well, I actually was told this and I believed it. So, okay, all the crap stuff I believed. But then I started listening to these tapes. I started doing sit ups at home, started doing push ups. My whole life I started to feel good about myself. Oh my goodness, really? Then when I started exercise, real small exercise, when I started doing exercise, great at home, started to go for a run for the first time, could only run 60 meters. Now I'm on day 190, by the way. Shout out to me as this goes out. 190 daily run count. And then I started to journal. Journaling changed my life that first year. Then I also started meditating. And then journaling and meditating for me, I don't really journal nowadays. I might do some meditation. I do some meditation now. But them things changed my life at the start. And it's important to know, I think personally, that it will evolve, it will change. You don't have to do the same thing. I think a lot of people beat themselves up if they haven't done a certain habit in a certain time. It's okay. You don't have to hold on to that, guilt for not doing that in a while. Maybe it's not, maybe you've grown out of it for the time being. But you don't need to have that guilt carried around with you, because that's actually negatively affecting all areas of your life and all relationships. So what started for me? Exercise, meditation, journaling, them things. I didn't know how to do them, didn't know the strategies. I couldn't overthink, Eugene. I didn't know how to be overwhelmed by them things. Them things were just fueling my day.
But one thing that you have, and it's definitely something that you've kept track of on your Instagram, is that consistency. Is you running for, again, 190 days. And I think another thing I think I've seen you have reels of is you drinking the egg flip, the raw egg.
Yeah.
How did that go? How long did that go for?
That was 30 days. I just listened to
For
it.
30 days?
Yeah, I just watched Rocky and I said, I need to do this. And every time I watch Rocky, I'll run at any time. Like David
I
Goggins.
remember, like, as soon as I saw you doing that, I remember that was me back in my school days, from first year up until sixth year.
Wow.
Every morning I'd have my Weetabix, and
That's
next thing I'd
awesome.
get like 3 eggs. I'd mix it up, and they're like, "Are you making scrambled egg?" And I'm like, "I don't have time for scrambled egg," and I just throw it back. And then
Wow.
they were like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, it kept me full until like my break time at 11 a.m." So I was like, "Yeah, I just have my Weetabix, throw back 2 or 3 eggs, and I was like, I can be digesting that protein." But for me,
That's awesome.
it was just something that I was like, yeah, sure, I'll give that a try. And next thing, it just became a morning routine on my school days. And then again, I think that contributed. I'm 6'4", so maybe that has contributed something to epigenetically to my height. Uh, so I think it's what the point I was trying to get at was the fact that you had those videos on your Instagram. Was that some way holding yourself accountable to stay on track every day and stay consistent on those habits?
It's interesting that you mentioned that, and I think it could be relevant for other people too. Was, I don't know if you heard the Chris Williamson or Alex Mosey podcast. They mentioned, it's just a clip I've seen. Maybe people have heard of you don't get confidence by shouting affirmations in the mirror. You might. I kind of agree with you do, but you get confidence from building a portfolio of successes that you've had. That's confidence right there, and it's like getting client wins. It's like having runs. It's like doing the challenges. It's like running 100 miles. It's like doing the 4x4x48 challenge. It's having these milestones, marathons, charity events. It's these beautiful things that nobody can take them away from you. And the challenge is like, me and my rock bottom, and people listening hitting their rock bottom and overcoming them. There's no way, like that. How is that not enough fuel for you right now? That right there is like, that just keeps me burning inside. Anyways, there's a big like lighthouse inside of me beaming. And
I
it's not
love
every
that.
day, right? I will mention that it's not every day. Of course, it's not every day. It's not like it's not every day, of course, but it's majority of the days. Let's say, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was Alex Hormozy as well. It's when you have self doubt, what's the best way to overcome self doubt? And it's to give yourself evidence. It's to go off, and if you feel that you're not confident in doing something, create evidence as to why you do have self empowerment in that area. So if you feel that you're not confident in texting people or sending out emails, send out 1,000 emails. And so it doesn't matter how bad they are. It was like, you send out 1,000, it can't be that bad. You probably improved somewhere between email 50 and email 500. So it's going out there and just getting the reps in. Just take action, because some people get paralyzed and they don't know where to start. But sometimes it's just start small, start anywhere and do it enough times. You're going to get better at it. And then you can take it to the next level once you're confident with the small step.
Just incredible stuff you're saying there. There's the great advice for you, ladies and gentlemen. If you own a business, send out 1,000 emails right now. I love that, really do. Build that. Alex Mosey's right about the self doubt. It's probably the same podcast, really. It's linking into get a backlog of them successes, and you will be able to fall back on them, and the self doubt is just going to get smaller and smaller. I think you're always going to have it. I'm not sure about that, but it sounds like you will. So, yeah. Yeah. Where do we go
I
from
think
here?
another way, even going back further to like, what is the most ridiculously simple habit that you can start to better yourself today? And I always come back to this, because when I first started out and I was trying to help people to get on their self improvement journey, and I started off and I was like, okay, I made this program, but it takes 6 to 8 months. And next thing I was like, this is I was trying to find the best value I could offer someone. And next thing they look at it and they're like, "Oh, that's going to take way too long. I want something now."
Mm.
I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to have to simplify it." And I was like, "Okay, I've got something that can do 6 weeks." And then they're like, "Okay, it's like, where do I get started?" It's like, "Oh, that looks really long." So I brought it back. I was like, "Okay, let's do something." And I was like, "Do I bring it back to 30 days? Do I bring it back to a 7 day challenge?" And I brought it back to, I was like, what is the simplest thing? What is the most ridiculous, simple thing that someone can do today, right now? And it's starting off your day with a win. So I think of the simplest things at the moment. The two most simple things that I can think of are when you get up in the morning, drink a glass of water. You're hydrating your brain. You can think clearly. You're off to a win today. I'm exactly the same. I'm sipping water all
Yeah.
day, every day. Uh,
Metaphorically
and
cheersed.
and then my other one is, when you get up in the morning and you go to brush your teeth, smile, smile in the mirror. And that's the first thing you do. Doesn't matter how ridiculous that smile is, that's your first smile of the day. And you're starting that chain reaction. If once you master that habit of smiling at yourself in the morning, your next habit is the first person you see, or whether that's your partner, your friend, your colleague when you go to work in the morning, or even if it's your dog, just smile at them. And you're already starting that chain reaction where you smile at someone, they're probably going to smile back. Your dog probably isn't going to smile back. He's going to wag the tail. It's probably going to trigger the same response. So you create that chain reaction of, you're starting with a small habit, that ripple effect, and next thing you're cracking a smile and you're making someone else's day. It's kind of, sometimes when you smile at someone and they're not expecting, especially early in the morning, it kind of triggers them to be like, they're kind of caught off guard. It's like, oh, why are you so happy in the morning? I better smile back, not to look awkward. And next thing, their day is off to a good start. And especially if you're working with them for all of the day, you've probably started off their day to a good start, and they see that you're positive that morning. So they're like, okay, I better see things in a positive light, and it makes everyone's day easier. So they're the two things for me at the moment: is having a glass of water and smiling. Just one smile. That's all you need to do, and then you're off to a winning start today.
A lot of people say the first win is, make the bed. That's a nice one too. Smiling. There's a poem out there. The poem is, it's about smiling, and it's in the poem. It says, your smile is infectious. It is contagious. So your smile can literally go around the whole world. I'm not saying as poetically as the poem or whoever you read it, you're supposed to read it, but it's along the lines of that smile is going to go around the world. So 2020, we should have got people infected on smiles here instead of, the other thing that we had. But yeah, the first win, make the bed for myself. Mel Robbins, the girl who does the 5 4 3 2 1, get up in the morning. She has the high five. So she wakes up and she high fives herself in the morning. That's her first thing that she does. So a few tips for you there, listeners.
This podcast is gold, and will we be we're what, about half an hour into it? Damn, we're on a roll. And is your hand getting tired in the mic yet?
Yeah, but it's all good. It's all good. It's good.
Awesome. So, in terms of, let's say, your coaching style, what is the best way for people to? It's the bulletproof mindset, right?
Yes,
What's
sir.
the best way for people to get on board with the bulletproof mindset? What's the first step? I think this is coming back to, again, me with the glass of water or the cracking a smile. What would be the first step to building on that bulletproof mindset?
So is this a matter of what can they do to create a bulletproof mindset, or is that matter of what can they do to? Is that the question?
Yeah, what would be the pointing them in the right direction? Whether that's, let's say,
Okay. Because I thought we were going to end there. I thought we were going to go.
Oh
Okay.
no, we're not going to end yet.
How
No,
do they get onto
I
your
was just
bulletproof
trying to
mindset
transition
coaching?
into your bulletproof mindset. Well, hey,
Yeah.
we can end if you want.
No, I thought you were going to go into it. Well, how do they get onto your coach and then bulletproof mindset? I was like, whoa, 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 we still need to, tick a few boxes, let's say. But in terms of bulletproof mindset, what's the new trend nowadays? Cold water exposure. Oh my goodness, we need to all do this. Now, there's a million and one, tools and techniques out there. Again, I think it is, maybe it's just me not using my imagination or helping, really right there. But what are them things that you can do that is going to be outside of the comfort zone? I used to do push-ups in the airport, right? Because being delayed, so why I need to get some exercise in, right? Do it. I need to, you know, uh, just speak in public, go into Dublin city centre and talk to random people. It's them things that is like, holy, why the heck am I doing this? That is just going to build up that bulletproof mindset. It's example after example after example that you're doing it. So if you haven't got them things, go back to what Eugene's saying, and what is them small things that you can do that would be outside of your comfort zone. Let's say you're playing for a football team. Eugene's not the biggest fan of football, as I found before the podcast, or sports, but it's okay. So maybe the listener is, but take it with a pinch of salt. It's not only football. Maybe you're a person who's a little bit shyer on the team. What would be a little thing that would be more out of the comfort zone? How would you be able to speak on the team? Could you get into a position where you're looking at maybe taking a captaincy just for a game, or how can you get out of that comfort zone? If it is just talking to someone at the bus stop, them things add up. They they add up. If it is a certain personal goal, like a fitness goal, a hell and back, or hell and back this year or next year, whenever it is. By the way, I'm a little winner at that, by the way. But it's that's the bulletproof mindset from training that's happened in the past. What can you do that is a little bit difficult, a little bit outside your comfort zone? And if it is cold water exposure, do it. What do you say, Eugene? What do you think is something that would be beneficial for someone to get into a mindset that's bulletproof? I've given a couple of things there, but there is no one size fits all, of course. So your opinion is just as valid as mine.
Yeah, of course. I think it also depends what you mean by being bulletproof.
Yeah. So for me, I mentioned this on episode 0 of my podcast. Bulletproof is not a matter of you're not going to get hurt. It's not a matter of you're not going to, die at the end of this trip. It's not a matter of you're not going to feel pain. You're going to probably feel all them things, but it means you're going to rise up regardless of them circumstances and them situations. It's not you're going to lay down and curl into a ball. You're going to pick up them rounds, if you want to use metaphorical in terms of bulletproof, and you're going to go again, and you're going to go again, and you're going to go again. We're all going to get knocked off the wagon, but not getting knocked off the wagon is not the skill here. How quickly can you get back on the wagon? That is the skill. So that's what I'll say.
Yeah, and I think you made a very good point there. And if you think of a bulletproof vest, it doesn't mean you are completely like every bullet that hits you is going to be painless. It's going to leave bruising. You're going to recoil. It's probably going to knock you down as well if depending on the caliber. But it means that you can get back up again. You don't have something that's after piercing through like your internal organs. It's something that it's there to help to protect you. I know a lot of people don't like the word resilience, but it does make you more resilient to something that is a weakness for you. It's how you stand up to your kryptonite. It's like, how can I put a casing around that kryptonite so that I can either be around it more often, or I can, let's say, get through my day and not be affected by that kryptonite or that weakness. I've been using a lot of, I've actually found that a lot in the podcast, using superhero analogies. And there's been Superman, there's been
Are you
Batman, there's been
interested in
Super
Marvel
Mario.
and DC? Are you? Are
What?
you interested in Marvel and DC?
Oh, I'm geek. I'm for anything Marvel, DC,
Well,
anime.
then it's okay. A lot
I'm
of
way up.
people will
I'm way
resonate with
out
that.
there.
I mean, it's very popular. A lot of people will resonate with that. So yeah, keep doing it.
Yeah. So it's just funny. That's the way that the analogies tend to come back to. But yes, it's being bulletproof. It's where do you see a weakness or what makes you really uncomfortable? And I've always been very introverted, or I've been seen as very introverted as well. Is that I don't like spending time in big crowds. Yes, I can talk to a crowd, but I don't like mingling with a lot of strangers. And it's because it's hard to see, let's say, on face value, where people are coming from, or if their values align with yours. And some people put up a veil, they put up a mask, and they have their public appearance. And it's hard to connect with them on a deep level. So I would rather spend my energy connecting with someone on a deep level. And that's why I have these conversations. I network with people over Zoom and on the podcast and the likes. And I connect with people on a deeper level. It's not that I don't like talking to people. I just like talking to people that I can connect with, that I can resonate with on some level with. And I think one thing for me, and people didn't, they were like, well, why is Eugene talking to so many like strangers online? And it's like he barely talks to people that he works with every day.
Right.
And it was me getting out of my comfort zone, because at first it was okay, it is uncomfortable talking to new people. But at the end of the day, I was like, what is the risk? It's like, okay, this is someone from the other side of the world, and the conversation doesn't go well. Well, I'm never going to see them again, so it's not as embarrassing, or it's not going to have that much of a negative impact, unless they're going to like move halfway across the world and move in next door to me, and then it's going to be awkward. But then it's like, what is the risk of having that conversation with someone? Is it a life or death situation? No. Is it going to impact me in my relationships? Is it going to impact my health? Is it going to impact my finances? Probably not. It's very unlikely that it would. So it's like, what's that smallest point where I can, again, make the smallest habit, smallest change, and do it enough times that I get comfortable with that discomfort. And yeah, I think that's how you build up that resilience, build that bulletproof mindset.
What I would add, or what I just thought about, should I say, is it is a case by case example. So I don't know if what I've saying, cold water exposure or do hard training or go in public speaking. I think it's, I don't, they're all tools, they're all things you can do, but I think it's a matter of asking yourself questions. And Eugene's prompting the question of what is the smallest thing that you can do? That is the question that needs to be answered for you, the listener. So whatever answer comes up for you, that is the thing, right? We could just sit here and talk about a million and one other things. If it's make the bed, if it's do this, if it's do that, if it's clean the room, as Jordan Peterson says, simple analogies, simple things that have a compounding effect over the long run. So the question is, what is them small things that is going to add up to you getting a bulletproof mindset? Boom. Dot, dot, dot. Answer, answer, answer. Go do them things. You're bulletproof. Buy into that belief as well, by the way. Work on the beliefs.
That's awesome. And I suppose wrapping up on then your bulletproof coaching and your bulletproof mindset, what's the best place for people to get in contact with you, Gary?
Definitely Instagram at Gary Coach Clinton. No doubt about that. Emails. I mean, I can't believe we're still using emails out here, but email 1,000 people, as Eugene says. No, definitely Instagram at Gary Coach Clinton. That's it.
Email is king. I don't get
Oh
the
man.
all the negative on email. I was like, yeah, I love when people reach out in email. Like Instagram is so mainstream, it's so easy to send a DM to someone,
Yeah.
and sending an email, you can really like, if you want to get to know me on a personal level, get to me on email, and hey, we can set up a call from there. They're the really brave people. It's like they're the people who want change. I'm like, okay, you've emailed me, now email me 1,000 times more,
Yeah.
and then you'll get out that discomfort. It's the discomfort of sending that email. It is so much easier to send a DM. But hey, if that's a good starting point for you, send the DMs.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Oh,
DM Gary Coach
yeah,
Clinton.
Gary. That'd be awesome. Yeah. I'm so not up to speed with email, but yeah, social platforms get me on there easily.
Awesome, Gary. It's great chatting to you, and it'll be great to have you on the show again.
Awesome. That'd be great fun, Eugene. I really enjoyed this. Thank you for the experience. I hope the listeners got incredible value, and I hope to see you again, Eugene.